But first, Paula Penfold has an exclusive interview with a man whose life fell apart in front of our very eyes.
Yes, you'll remember his name, Alasdair Thompson. He was the head of the Employers and Manufacturers Association, effectively the Bosses Association of New Zealand, and you'll remember his comments. He effectively said that half the workforce, that women lose productivity, take too many sick days because of their period pain.
That's right. All hell broke loose, of course, but life became pretty hellish for Alasdair Thompson as well. Not only did he lose his job, but for a very short time, he also lost his mind.
People rephrased what I actually said. Women should be paid less because they have periods. Women should be paid less because they have periods. I never, ever, ever said that.
But what he did say, while polarising, while regrettable, brought about an anguish and hopelessness which will surprise even those who know him well. A self-flagellation and atonement which makes the Alasdair Thompson 2 years on very different from the one we knew before.
I haven't even mastered this one, the skill of making a bed.
Being a modern woman, I'm not surprised you really don't know how to make a bed.
Yes, he's got me figured out. As unfashionable as it is to say these days, I am a feminist. And he has a reputation as a sexist dinosaur, which pits us as adversaries. But he's determined to show me another side of him.
Now this is the key thing that Jane told me. Make sure you do that and you mitre it. You do that, then you do that.
Wow. A perfect hospital corner.
Yeah, perfect hospital corner. About calls she made.
And Alasdair Thompson, as I'm about to learn, is trying quite hard to be something of a feminist himself, studying up on gender issues, keeping any chauvinism in check. What a difference 2 years makes.
Look at who takes the most sick leave. Why do they take the most sick leave? Women do in general. Why? Because, once a month they have sick problems. Not all women, but some do.
It wasn't a smart thing to say, and so...
You knew that right then, didn't you?
Yeah, as soon as they came out of my mouth. I just knew. I just knew it wasn't going to be acceptable.
And wasn't going to end well.
No, I just knew that. Women take more sick leave in general. I know we don't... It's an awful thing to say, but it's true.
In the inevitable onslaught of interviews that followed, trying to explain himself, things just went from bad to worse.
Don't interrupt me, otherwise we stop the interview.
And if he was already tripping...
You can disbelieve it if you want to. I'm not a liar, I'm telling you the truth.
The excruciating descent of his fall from grace played out here with Mihi Narangi Forbes, then of Campbell Live.
So when someone is sick here, you ask them why they're sick and they tell you because they've got heavy period pains?
No, I don't.
What?
No.
I'm asking you a serious question.
No, you're not. You're just going into crap.
I've listened. I've sat here and
sorry.
listened to everything about your bill, and then when I get to ask you a question about what you've said
You've
this
asked
morning...
this question over and over again in one way or another, and I've answered it over and over again.
You said it on the radio and people are offended by it.
You lost your cool.
Yeah.
You're a very seasoned media performer.
Yeah, I know.
Where it went so badly wrong
Was when I got cross with her. And yes, I walked off, and I said, end of interview, walked off, came back, stood over her, and I looked like this big towering, and I was a lot heavier then too, over this tiny little woman, and
It was a bad look.
It was a terrible look. It made me cringe. It was shocking look. It was shocking. It was a terrible performance. And
Terrible performance or terrible thing to do?
terrible thing to do. Terrible thing to do.
For someone who'd been doing interviews for 30 years, how did he let it go so horribly wrong?
Cut.
Well, no one, including him, is making excuses. But there are a couple of key factors that came in the lead-up to that brain explosion, as it was later described. 1. Thompson was injured in a car crash just days before and was still on morphine-derived pain medication. And 2. He'd let his health, including his mental health, go. He'd stopped this, his regular exercise. He'd started drinking and smoking again. And the mental illness that runs in his family, and which he's battled his entire adult life, had come back, without him realising.
The fog, I call it the fog. The fog was gradually coming in, but you don't notice it. But when I told my chairman on the Friday night, the next day after this furor broke out, that I thought that possibly, you know, I told him about this issue, and which he didn't know anything about.
Was he the one who said that might explain your sometimes impatience in board meetings?
Yeah, which is the same type of thing, that overbearing, antagonistic thing, the thing that I did with Mihi. I was doing it with my board members. I wasn't blaming the fog coming in. I was blaming them for, well, in my head, you know, I was blaming them for being, well, I can say it now, a bit thick, you know.
Can now that you've gone.
Thompson had a distinguished career, including a long term as Thames Coromandel District Mayor, and then 12.5 years as CEO of the Employers and Manufacturers Association.
In your tenure there, would you describe it as successful?
Oh, mate, it was fantastically successful. The EMA's success under my leadership, it's like the orchestra, you know, the conductor, but it's the orchestra that brings the success. And my orchestra brought tremendous success. My success wasn't setting up a good orchestra.
Which made his subsequent failure all the more humiliating. The first he knew of his impending demise came in a call from his wife.
I've just received this from our lawyer, and it says you've been fired. And it's 2 or 3 minutes to 6. She said, there's also a media statement. I've sent it to you. You better watch the 6 o'clock news. Or not.
And did you?
Yeah.
And there it was.
There it was.
Kia ora, good evening. Alasdair Thompson, the employer's CEO, has been fired for his controversial...
All of a sudden, he was unemployed. The man who'd influenced business all over the country was applying for jobs, but being told he was damaged goods, unemployable. Of his exit from EMA, he's not allowed to speak. There's a confidentiality clause.
They fired you ultimately, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. They did. And I won't comment on that. I won't. No, I will. I will say this, that I was actually being cared for, professionally cared for, out of town. You know, in the mental thing.
You had put your...
Because I got to a point, my wife was away looking after our grandchildren, and I was here by myself, and it's stupid. I mean, how can anybody say this? But I felt suicidal. I went into the bathroom. I'd been prescribed sleeping tablets over this whole issue. So I grabbed a lot and... oh, it's just a memory.
Mm. It was that dark then. That fog really had descended, hadn't it?
I'm not unhappy. I have never felt happier and more joyful in my life than I am now. So this emotion is just a replay.
Hmm. It's hard for you to believe now that that's how dark it became for you. Yeah. I don't think anybody watching this whole train wreck play out would have any comprehension that that's how bad it became.
Oh, a lot of people have had things happen, and as I said earlier, you know, I didn't have cancer and I wasn't going to die. Mind you, that was what I was thinking.
I'm sorry, that must have been... That's very harsh. But you have come through it, thank goodness. Mm.
This isn't how I am now.
No, I know. I've spent enough time with you now to know that this is not how you are.
So, anyway, I had enough sense to get on the phone, and I called my wife and I said, look, I'm calling these people, and I'm not going to drive myself. They're going to come and pick me up, which they did, and I went away.
Wow, that's very revealing, very candid. It's interesting because you see people calling for his head, but you don't see what's happening behind the scenes.
And there's always another side, isn't there? Something leading up to it. So has he recovered? That's next.